You want to see the Christ child?
The filthy-looking man said. What? Gary, sitting on the diner stool trying to eat his 2 a.m. waffles in peace, replied.
The Christ child. Want to see him?
The man looking for visitors for the baby Jesus had been sitting quietly at the same diner, a few seats away from Gary, for at least 20 minutes before he had approached him with his offer. Look, buddy, Christmas is over. If you're looking for a handout, I don't have any cash. You want some of my waffles? They're yours. Just leave me alone. The dirty man stared at Gary, unblinking. The other patrons of the diner looked like they were doing their best to ignore the entire interaction. The grill chef shared a glance with Gary and rolled his eyes. Eventually, it was impossible for Gary to ignore the dirty man's presence. Finally, he swiveled his diner stool slightly in the dirty man's direction and spoke. All right, I'll bite. What is it? You trying to unload some Christmas cards now that the season's over? You got a dog in a box out there with a halo stapled to its head? What's the angle? Through filthy teeth, the dirty man smiled.
No angle. You come out, I show you the Christ child, and if you don't believe 100% that he is what I say he is, I pay for your dinner.
The seated man considered the prospect of free and clear waffles. Lead on, champ. Gary turned to the cook as he got up off his stool. I'd like a check when I get back. This gentleman has agreed to take care.
Not yet,
the dirty man cut in with his unblinking stare. Okie dokie then. Let's go. The dirty man led him out the doors of the diner into the crisp, gray January night. They walked 2 blocks down the street, passing the husks of the Christmas rush apparent in the windows of the shops.
It's right down here.
The dirty man pointed in the direction of an alleyway. Gary stopped and peered down the alley. He had a few inches and at least 50 pounds on this guy if he tried to pull anything. He could have a gun or a knife, but he didn't think so. Didn't look like the twitchy type, but he didn't want to be stupid. Go right ahead, bud. This is a follow-the-leader situation. The dirty man's smile never left his face.
Sure, man.
In the dim light of the corner streetlight, they navigated the alley. The dirty man led him to a small box at the far end of the alley. He pointed.
In there. Open it up, and you'll see.
Gary maneuvered around the box so he had his back to the wall and was facing the dirty man. He looked down at the small, slightly damp-looking cardboard box. Free dinner with my name on it. He opened the flaps and looked inside. He stared silently. After a minute or two, he reached in and pulled something out. It was a small shape wrapped in a bundle of torn clothes. Pulling back the cloth covering, it revealed a child. A child with the most striking and beautiful green eyes he'd ever seen. As he held the child, Gary felt like he was plunged into an ocean of calm. Every fear, every worry he had ever had fled like shadows in the sunlight. With tears welling in his eyes, Gary turned to the man who'd extended an invitation to meet his savior. You know, I never really believed. It didn't make sense to me. But this... He looked down at the smiling child. This makes sense. An energized look crossed Gary's face. Who else can we tell? Everybody has to know about this. Everybody... He was cut off by the large set of jaws that clamped down and tore out his throat. In his pain and panic, he dropped the child, its tiny mouth stained with crimson. Faster than he thought possible, arms reached out to catch the baby. Arms belonging to the dirty man. Sliding down the brick wall of the alley, Gary ripped off his sleeve and stuffed it against the spurting, open wound on his neck in a desperate attempt to staunch the bleeding. not the Christ child," he gurgled out, struggling to stay conscious. The dirty man stroked the light tufts of hair on the baby's head as he spoke.
"Oh, it's the Christ child, all right."
He motioned to the opening of the alleyway. The diner patrons, the grill chef, even the cop they had passed parked in his patrol car. They had all gathered there, crowding out the light, all staring with their brilliant green eyes.
"It's just not your Christ child. It's ours."
The dirty man smiled his dead-eyed smile.
"And every Christ child needs gifts. Thank you for bringing the first."
The last thing Gary ever saw was the dirty man lowering that thing wrapped in swaddling clothes down to his level. It gurgled as its tiny face split apart to make way for endless rows of shiny, red-stained teeth.